This conference will now be recorded.
Wow, it's fancy. Okay, so welcome to our first virtual together time. My name is Mary Ferguson. I'm with the Birches in Clarendon Hills, and my partner Patty Turkovich is off camera right now, but she is from Inspired Living of Westmont, and she and I will be working with you today. This was brought to you from the Dementia Friendly Series. Westmont became an official dementia friendly community in March of 2020, right before, unfortunately, the pandemic hit. But I wanted to share a little bit of information with you about what that is and what that means to Westmont. So I've been part of the committee along with the Village of Westmont, the police, the fire, the library, Park District, the chamber, and a couple of local businesses. We got together with the idea that we wanted to make Westmont a community that is able to provide those living with dementia and their caregivers support, resources, and education. And our goal is that as we continue to move forward, that the businesses are able to help recognize when there might be someone living with dementia and how to make their lives a little bit easier when they're out and about in the community. We also want to do education and resources. The library has been wonderful. We've partnered with them for over a year now to bring those education and resources. In your kit that you received, your bag, there is a flyer, and I'll hold it up to the camera. It's Dementia Friendly Resource Guide. So this has just the partners that are part of the coalition that we started, as well as some other resources, adult daycare, behavioral health, Rush Alzheimer's Disease Center. So this is just a nice place to start. There's also a email, Dementia Friendly Westmont email address. So if you do have questions regarding the resources, education, or overall questions about memory, please email that, and someone from our task force will be in touch with you and help support you on your journey. So that being said, what I'm going to do is my friend Patty, she is going to kind of kick off with this program, and I will be back. So we're sitting actually in the Chamber of Commerce, their office space in the basement. So we have a lot of space to social distance. So there's going to be a time when we are switching out. So if you could be patient with us, that would be great. So I'll be back. Okay, here's Patty.
Thanks, Mary. Hi, welcome. I am so glad that you've all been able to join us today. Today's program, as Mary said, is really focusing on activities that you can do with your loved one with memory loss. None of the ideas are truly original. They're not rocket science, but the goal is to give us all pause and give us that moment to think about how can we spend time together and make it more meaningful. Oftentimes in my career, and I've worked in memory loss for almost 20 years now, and I am a certified dementia practitioner, so I've seen consistently and have heard from many families talking about they just don't know what to do when visiting. Families will sometimes, certain family members and friends will stop visiting. So we thought this would be a good way to encourage people to accept those friendly offers. When someone says, is there anything I can do? Always have it in your hip pocket, yes, and these are some ideas that that person can do with your loved one. This is something that family can do, and it is also something that you can do as well. So the first project, I should say, again, many of these materials are in the bag if you picked up your kit, is putting together a collage. And what I love about a collage is you can do all sorts of themes. It can be focused on a color, a season, an item, you know, flowers, cars. You can do what, it could be something that you love. It could be anything that you choose. The other reason I really like this particular project is that it is something you can do every month and do something different. You can even create these collages and give them as gifts to family members. So having that purposeful, meaningful gift kind of continue on and give mementos to your loved ones and friends. So in your kit, you will have found a pair of scissors. They are nice, they do cut, but I chose blunt ends because usually we have pointy ones. And at some point in time, those pointy scissors can be dangerous. So Gave you something to start off that you can use, put in the pocket, use it down the road. Also, let's face it, how many times do you go looking for your scissors and you can't find them? So that was given to you. We also gave you a colorful heart, and this is going to be the background for your collage. And depending, we mixed up the colors, so you have either purple, pink, or red. So I'm going to work with purple. I also provided a glue stick. Again, if your household is like mine, when you go looking for that handy dandy glue stick, what ends up happening is it's dry, and that always irritates me. So we made sure that we gave you a glue stick to start with. The glue stick that I chose actually is something that the glue goes on purple. I don't know how well you can see that, but it goes on purple and it dries clear. The reason I chose this is because depending on where someone is in their memory loss disease process, the vision changes throughout the course of the disease, and that is something that is rarely spoken about. So anything we can do to help that eye focus on a task, the better the outcome will be, the less frustrating it will be as well for the person. So I purposely bought the glue stick that is purple. I also thought it was kind of cool and kind of fun and different. I didn't have these when I was growing up. So that's a must to try new things. Magazines, we kind of just randomly put several in each of the kits. And what I would recommend doing is picking a theme and choosing what would you like to do. Would you like to pick out things that you would use when gardening, pick out flowers, pick out a color? And because it's February, the color red is everywhere. And Mary, ironically, both of us showed up wearing red today. So what I'm going to do is I am going to show you some of the things that I've already cut out that are red. And I know it's also Chinese New Year season, so I, of course, grabbed the dragon. Flowers, because you can never have too many flowers. For someone who enjoys pizza, this would be something that would count as well. And the beauty is, as you're going through the magazine and you're looking at items, it gives you that opportunity to talk about them. So again, using the example of we're looking for something red, going through it, I could cut out virtually anything that's red, whether it was this little teeny tiny stop sign, which you may not even be able to see, this comic that has a nice red car in it. It can even be words like early. Not that there's any meaning to the word early to me, but because it's red. If it was going to be something that I love, that would be something that I would go with for sure, the dragon, the pizza, and the flower. So in doing a collage, keep in mind it's not only, oh, and I do like Oberweis ice cream, just so you know. But I do enjoy doing these because it is something that's slow, methodical, and you can take your time and enjoy each other's company. It gives you that opportunity, as I said earlier, to go through the magazine and talk about what it is that you're seeing. So here's a great picture of, well, it's actually a bomb, but when I first glanced at it, the top of it made me think it was a hot air balloon. So I've been hot air ballooning, and I want to have that in there because it's red and it's something that I enjoy. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that out and add that to my collage. And if you don't remember from when we did these things as children, there are no rules. You can cut it out however you like. You can put it wherever you want. This is also something you can do in tandem. So say someone's fine motor skills are at a point where they can no longer use the scissors, they can point what they want and someone else can cut that out for them. So using my handy dandy blue purple stick, I just took it, put it on my dragon, and placed it where I felt it looked good. And here's the other thing. There's no right, no wrong in any of the stuff that we're doing. If it makes a person happy and it feels good and it's not doing any harm to anyone, it's okay to do that. Pizza, while I'm hoping for better than pizza for Valentine's Day dinner, I still do enjoy pizza, especially because this looks like Giordano's stuffed crust pizza, so that goes on here. Flowers, red, favorite color. Putting that on here as well. And again, there's no rules, so I'm putting it here because it makes it look like the dragon has a pom-pom on its tail. And then I'm adding in my hot air balloon. I think it's beautiful because I made it. And this is something that you can do on a big poster board. You can just take an everyday piece of paper and do a collage on that. If you have a magnet, and one of my favorite cheats to do is, you know how you get magnets from places you have no business ever using, but you feel obligated to throw it on your refrigerator? Take one of those, get some glue, glue it to the back, and then this becomes a decorative thing that you can put on your refrigerator. Somebody special in the family that you decide this would be something they'd enjoy, receiving a handmade gift from you or your loved one, then you go ahead and you think about what kind of theme would they enjoy, what would be meaningful for them, what would you want to send to them. The other point that I want to make is that a collage doesn't have to just be paper. You can add in other elements that make sense to you that you would enjoy seeing for the textural difference. All of these tasks are fine motor skills, keeping those hands doing the tasks that we end up starting to lose because people are doing things for us. So nothing is irrelevant. Everything about this task has a benefit for the person as well as yourself. So Mary was nice enough to grab some ribbon from her home because I didn't think of this, but made a nice little ribbon that I could put on my card just to dress it up. When it dries, I'll probably make it into a bow, but you get the idea. With this project, you can do it seasonally. There are no rules, and the simplicity of this is just wonderful because most of these are items that you now have in your hands, possibly even already have in your home. These are things that you can do from early stage of the disease as well as into very advanced stages, because if I'm in later stages of the disease, again, I may not be able to hold the scissors and do that, but I can point at pictures that I like. I can put the pictures on the paper. I have seen these done in my communities in the past, and they actually got a big poster board. I don't remember what the dimensions are of a poster board, but they're big. And what we did is we had residents actually cut things out and post to it all month long to describe that month, what was meaningful to them about the month. And it just took on its own little vision, no rhyme or reason to it, but every item that got put on there had a story behind it and why it was selected. Just as when I walked you through this, I talked about the reasons I chose all of those items. So that is your first project that you have in the kit. As I mentioned, and you'll hear this frequently from me, none of this is rocket science, but so often as that family caregiver or that friend or distant relation, people don't know what to do. And so our goal is to help show you some very simple, basic things that you can talk to. If you're visiting with a friend of yours who's a guy and you happen to have a magazine that this is Dig Into History, the 1860s, what a decade. As you're going through the magazine, you can stop and you can talk about it. One of the other things many people don't realize is you can read through end of life with memory loss diseases. The font just has to be clean and bigger. So encouraging a person to continue using all of their skills and all of their abilities and letting them take their time in doing it is where the real win comes. So that being said, I'm going to quickly pack up my little kit here. I am going to frame this and give it to Mary just because I know she'd appreciate it. And I'm going to slide off and let Mary come back. I hope this was helpful, and I hope you try it and have some fun with it. And I can tell you this too, you can even do it on your own. Just because we're adults doesn't mean we can't have some fun. So enjoy it and let me slide out so Mary can slide back on in. Thank you for your time. I'll be back.
Okay, so I'm back. So yes, I'm very excited. Patty's going to give me her Valentine. So with the first project, you know, Patty said was in the kit. The second one is pie. So who doesn't like pie? So in your kit, there's a box of pie crust. The reason we did this is we wanted something simple. And you know, if you like to make pie crust from scratch, or you have one that's pre-made that's already rolled out, that's fine. The idea was this is something that's simple, because as Patty, this will drive Patty crazy, I'm going to put my hands in there and I'm going to mix it around. But that is the idea. So you have your pie crust, you have your filling, and you have your pie pan. Now, again, if you have your glass one at home you want to use, or you have one that's already pre-made, that's fine. But we wanted you to have something to start with so that you can engage in this. As Patty had said, and I'll continue to say, this is an easy project, and we want it to be easy, because sometimes the more steps you have involved, someone can lose interest, it can be too overwhelming. So we wanted to keep things as simple as possible. So in the pie crust, which I've already kind of done some pre-planning, kind of like Martha Stewart would, is I added my water and I have my ball of dough. Now, Patty was generous. She's got several rolling pins, but this is a French rolling pin. But the idea with using a rolling pin is certainly you'd like to roll out your dough, but the other idea is for some folks, again, this is great for their motor skills. And actually for some people, it's exercise, because when you try to roll out something, it does work on your arms. And so the idea is we want as much engagement and movement as possible that someone is able to tolerate. So let me get you as if I was rolling out my pan. So when you have your loved one or yourself pick up the dough, and this is where Patty's going to go crazy because I'm touching it so much, is certainly you want to make a pie crust. But the idea really is for someone to feel it and have the tactile piece of it. Because when you feel crust, this one's a little crumbly. Smelling, of course, I have a mask on, so that's harder, but have someone smell it. And during this, talk about, reminisce, what does that remind them of? Was it a time when you made pies when you were a little girl, a little boy, and your mom or dad made homemade pastries? Or maybe it was when they remembered making pie with their mom or their grandmother. So this is an opportunity for you to engage and connect on a different level other than just making pie. Pie is just an easy way to maybe start that reminiscing. So have them touch it, knead it, taste it. You know, again, this is all edible. So I won't taste this, but the idea behind it really is you want to draw in all of those senses, because that does wonders for the brain. So it's the touch, the smell, the taste, the sight. So again, depending on where someone is in the disease process, one of their senses may not be as strong. So this is where you can pull all of those senses in as best as possible. So again, what you're doing is you're pushing down and you're rolling. Now, for somebody that doesn't have a lot of the upper body strength, you can do this together. You can do hand on hand, or you do it in smaller batches. So you have one, like, very simple, and you continue to do that to make your pie crust. If the rolling pin is not successful, use your hands, push down. Again, the idea here is not to win the pie contest. The idea here is to have that interaction. That tactile is so important right here. But more important, it is you're doing this together. This is a project that you guys can share, have conversations about, reminisce about. You know, I think one of the starting conversations you can have is, what time, you know, of year do we always make pie? Is it Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, 4th of July, apple pie, cherry pies, whatever that goes? Because as an example, I remember as a child, we always had pie at 4th of July. And my mom used to love to sing patriotic songs. So if that's something that you remember, go ahead and sing some songs or hum them, because that will help that long-term memory come back. And again, that's an opportunity to engage and have a memorable moment with your loved one. So yes, I have certainly played with this crust enough, so I will put that off to the side. And I was prepared, so my crust doesn't look great in my pan, but it's not supposed to, and that's okay. So the next piece of what I would be doing, I'm gonna push this up to the side here, is the best part really, I think, is the filling. So again, if you make your own filling and you wanna do that, by all means do that. But this again is an opportunity for you to not have to spend that time. Open up the can like I did and pour it in a bowl. Now, the beautiful thing about this, if you think about it, of course I have red on, Patty has it. Look at how beautiful the red is. So it's the cherry piece of it. This is great visually. It's very easy to see. And now you can have a conversation about, oh, look at how beautiful that red is. What does that remind you of? Does it remind you of a rose? Does it remind you of cherry jello? Whatever that person might be, that's all that really matters. And so that's what you want to focus on. Although Patty would be sickened by it, I'm going to do this, is encourage someone to taste it. That's the best part of making a pie or anything like that, is the taste, your taste buds. This is going to be sweet or tart depending on what someone's interest is. So what we want to encourage is, whether it's a spoon or even if they dig on into the pie and they taste it, they lick it, see that reaction and then go with that. Is it tart? Oh my goodness, wasn't that so sweet? And then again, what does that remind you of? Did you ever go cherry picking or apple picking, whatever type of pie you have? Again, it goes back to, it's not about necessarily the pie, as it is an opportunity to awake some of the senses and certainly do something together. So again, I'm gonna throw my filling in here, which is pretty easy. But for someone that maybe has some sensory issues, what you can do is you can get a bigger spoon like this one here, this one here, and instead of you doing it, have them scoop and pour. This is actually a great hand-eye coordination, and again, it works that motor skill. So when you think about it, for us, it's pretty easy. Oh, you're just scooping, but it is that maybe you hold the bowl while they scrape, and this could take a few minutes, but that's okay. And once they get it in there, then to move it around. Again, the idea here is you want them to follow a process to make the pie, but something that's going to be easy for them to do. Now, if they put the spoon down and use their hands, again, it's fine. I think the more engagement you can do on each of these steps, the better. Now, I've gone through this pretty quickly, but the idea is have those conversations, because it's so important to let your loved one know that what they're doing is perfect. There is no right or wrong. It doesn't matter. If you might say, my gosh, my mom would be appalled because she made everything from scratch. She took her cherries and she pitted them and did all that. That's not the goal. The goal is for you to spend time with your loved one, trying to get them engaged and reminisce, because reminiscing is so important, not only for your loved one, but for you. We all like to have conversations about our past, what we've done, things that we remember. So maybe if your mom or dad or aunt or uncle, whoever that you're doing this project with isn't engaged as well, then you can say, oh my gosh, I remember when. And again, have those conversations, because it's very important to maintain as much independence as someone with dementia has, but really those connections, because the stronger those connections are, the more enjoyable different projects will be. So for cherry pie, again, the wonderful crust, you're gonna want a crust on top of your cherry pie, but it doesn't have to be a beautiful lattice. If you don't want it to be, you could do something as simply giving dough and just having them plop it on top. Now, that may not be what you'd want to do, or Patty, because I can see she's giving me the eye, because Patty's much more of a baker. But the idea is not that. It is just to do, again, pulling off. This is a step. When you think about how many steps are in this, it's more than you'd think. It's having to hold dough, it's having to take your hand, place it on the dough, and pull it apart. And then what do? You could just drop it, but the idea is you might want to say, oh, let's put it at the top of the pie. And that's an instruction. Simple steps usually have very multiple steps inside of them, if that makes sense. So again, you could do that. If you have cookie cutters, make this flat again and use cookie cutters, or even a jar. You have a glass, a jar, make circles, put it on top. The idea again is it's going back to the tactile. Now you're covering the pie. Okay, this is a great conversation to say, wow, look at how much we don't see the cherry filling anymore. We put a lot of pie crust on top of that. The other thing you can do, if you're thinking you don't like pie, mom never liked pie, or we're never going to eat it all, is you can take the crust and you can flatten it out, roll it out, and you can make a hand pie. And so that's pretty simple. And I'm laughing and you can't see me, but Patty jokes about how she loves this more than anything. So again, as the hand pie, this is kind of small, but you take that, you have your loved one scoop something in the middle, and you can just fold it up. Now, even if it's kind of messy, even if you never bake this or eat this, it is actually, as I touch the cherry filling, it's cold. That's another conversation. Oh my gosh, I didn't think that would be so cold. What do you think? Again, now you're sealing it and you're getting it ready to bake. Like we've said from the beginning, we really want you to engage and again, have those conversations. Remember, it's not about the pie, it's about the time that you're working together. Now, so you bake your pie. So I will say, I'm not a great pie maker, so here's my pie at the end. Looks wonderful. This is what you want to do too, is if you're worried about your pie looking kind of like mine did, and you're thinking, no way anybody's going to want to eat this, but you want that experience, you can buy your own so that you can say, look at how wonderful this pie ended up being. Is it a little bit of a white lie? Yes, but that's okay because you can cook this and you can still eat this. But the next thing would be, and Patty took my fork, would be to cut this and have your loved one cut the pie. Because again, it goes back to how are they going to do it? This is again, a really quick butter knife. It's not really sharp. You don't really want anything sharp. Go ahead and you cut the pie, you put it on your plate, and then you get to enjoy it. And that's, again, where the senses. And you can talk about, oh my gosh, we made such a wonderful pie together. Would you like to do this with me again sometime? And then again, whether it's pie, whether it's cookies, anything that you want to bake, anything you want to prepare together, you can do. You know, we tried to keep things simplified, certainly for the idea of the kit, so everything would stay fresh, but we really wanted to make sure that the idea was there's a lot of steps in making a pie. There's a lot of steps in doing a collage, and your loved one just needs that guidance from you, and that you should enjoy this time together. This is a wonderful thing to do for a family member, as Patty said, who doesn't know what to do. What can I do with your mom? I know you need a break. I'm going to come over and we're going to make pies or we're going to make cookies. Don't worry if it gets messy. Don't worry if it's a complete failure in the sense of, oh my gosh, it was the worst pie I've ever had. That's not the point. The end result is really not what you're looking for. It's the process from the beginning to get through the end. It's that touching, the feeling, your senses with your loved one. So my hands are pretty messy right now. And so Patty, we do have one more activity that Patty wants to share with you. So as I go wash my hands and clean up my mess, Patty is going to come back. And Patty, I apologize because I did leave you a little bit of a mess. So sorry about that, but I'll take my pie.
I think we failed to realize the extra crumb factor
Yes.
that could happen here. Hi, thanks for hanging in there as we go through into our next project. So you're probably by now catching on to the theme of the end result isn't what matters. It's about spending that time together and making it meaningful for everybody. The last project that we have today is another one that I actually did with my residents for a big fancy event that we were hosting. I will tell you, when I think about the projects that have been most successful, they all have a Montessori theme and feel to them where someone can begin and stay with them all the way through the project. This particular one, my residents helped create, And they ended up being at the party, of course. They got to see people enjoying the treats that they made. And then, of course, they were waiting for all the guests to leave so they could finish them off themselves. So that being said, in the kit, you will find a bag of the Snyder mini pretzels, a bag of nuts. I personally like pecans best, but you can use walnuts or a nut of your choice. But I think these have the best flavor for this project. And then a little baggie with some Dove dark chocolate, which is good for the brain. And it's a caramel sea salt center for it. As we keep hearing us talk about the fine motor skills, using that dexterity, taking the time to do things slowly and together. So often society is rushing, we've got to get this done. And if you're a caregiver, chances are very strong that you're actually in that mindset of just get it done, just get it done. Whereas we really need to sit back and enjoy being with our loved one and where they're at throughout the process. So when we were doing this in my building, I had created stations with my residents, and I had those that were opening the chocolates up. So they slowly opened those. I purposely made sure I stood nearby to monitor because I knew more were going to enter the mouth than get onto the plate, and I really needed them on the plate. I did have one lady who was 1 for her, 4 for the table. So, you know, again, it's fun, it's natural. That's what we do in our homes, you know. Think about when you are sitting at the table in the kitchen and somebody's making something. Chances are you're going to reach over and snag something because it looks good, it's tasty, or you just feel like it. So opening the pretzels, as Mary talked about earlier, the smell, the taste, the tactile, you know, with pretzels, you've got the salt on them, you've got those little bumps. Those are little things that are helping to stimulate the brain. And as much as we take it for granted, for a person with memory loss, these things are beneficial for them. You do not want their world to become so sterile and void of texture and smells, and that what brings quality to our lives. So I'm only going to do 2 because otherwise Mary will feel obligated to eat them all for me. I'm one of those gluten-free people, so I can't eat these. I purposely bought didn't get the gluten-free pretzels. So I've got the pretzels, I put them on the plate. This is not rocket science, but I'm telling you the wow factor was super fun. You just place the chocolate on top of the pretzels. And again, it's fun, it's playful, it's human nature to snag a pretzel or to snag a candy and eat it. My other half, he loves nuts. If I wasn't watching him, he would have eaten this whole bag already. So it's part of the game, it's part of the fun, it's part of what makes it memorable. Everything's okay. There are no rules saying that's not what we do. Never, ever, ever, and this is hard, I realize it, never correct or say no. Try to get that word no out of your vocabulary. Taking an approach of, how about if we do it this way? And if you're sitting there thinking, oh, my loved one will never do this, let me give you a tip that will help them better embrace this idea. Can you help me with this? All of us are raised to be helpful. Whether we maintain that as we grow up or not is another issue. But that is ingrained in us from very early on to help someone. And for someone who may be starting to take on people helping them so much, it is a great opportunity for them to feel they're helping you. So I would encourage you, never dismiss an idea out of turn, never dismiss it as, oh, they'll never do it because. Try it and let it happen as it will. It's an organic process. Very often people are surprised at what their loved ones will do because of the changes in the brain. I once had a gentleman, when his wife came and placed him with my community, the wife laughed when I talked about our cooking program. And she's like, I'm going to tell you something. And she told me the story about when her daughter had their first grandchild, was out in California. She had made meals for a week long, froze them with the instructions on them in the freezer. All he had to do was come home and pop it in the oven to warm it. Within 2 days of her being out in California to help her daughter with their brand new baby, her husband called and summoned her home. It's a different era than mine. Summoned her home because he was tired, quote, of cooking these meals. And she did go home. And I will never forget that story because I just can't relate, but it's amazing. But, you know, again, a different generation that I can appreciate. So when I told her about our cooking program, she said to me, oh, I'd pay big money to see that, joking. And she told me that story. And I shared with her, never say never, because one of the other things that is ingrained with us are social skills. If we see somebody doing something, we're also inclined to follow suit. So the best part of this story is she shows up at my door one day and she looks at me and says, I have to tell you, you were right, which, like, who doesn't like being told they're right? You know, you don't hear that very often. So I stood there and I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, you've got to come see this. And I walked to where they were doing the cooking program. And there was her husband, the man who summoned her home because he was tired of cooking. He was there elbow deep in mixing up the dough for the ladies and putting it out as they were making cinnamon rolls. And she said, I nearly fell over when I walked. I had to take a picture of it and send it to my daughter because we all know that was woman's work in his mind. So it just goes to show, approach, can you help me with this? Following suit with, if everyone else is doing this, people will naturally want to help out. So as simple as this is, that's how I got my group of people, my residents that day, to help me make. We had to make 150 of them, which, you know, it's not that it's hard, it's just it's time. So many hands make light work. So they took the pretzels, we put them on the tray, we took the chocolates, put those on the tray, and then we put the pecans on. Now, 2 ways that you can do this. You can either pop it in the oven for a minute or two just to get the chocolate warming, and then when you pull them out, you tap the pecan or the nut of your choice on top so it sets in place. So I'm only doing 2 so we don't have to eat too many sweets here. And I timed this out in a microwave. And at 5 seconds, I pulled it and you could see that it was just starting to be gooey. So just watch your settings because, hey, Mary, would you hand me that one?
These are mine.
The first test that we did, I got a pile of mush because I thought 10 seconds sounds right. And this is the best part about working with folks with memory impairment. You quickly learn none of it matters. It's okay. So Mary will attest to the fact they taste just as good as a melted mush pile as they would when you have something that was done properly. And you don't see much change, and you're probably not going to pick up all of the nuances, but the chocolate melted just enough. You can see a little bit of the caramel peeking out. These are essentially a pretzeled version of like either a pixie or a turtle or whatever you would call them. So once you make these, and the reason I chose this particular project is it's nice, it's slow, it's methodical, it's not too much, allows for conversation, allows for people to not feel overwhelmed with the process. But also it's February, the month of love, the month of us giving candies and treats to people we appreciate. This is a really darling little thing. You could put 3 or 4 in a little baggie, put a bow on it or not, and give it to people you know. Gifts are so much more appreciated and so much more special when it comes from someone we know, particularly maybe having some challenges. So that is why we chose this particular treat, something sweet, something that can be gifted or something that you can enjoy yourselves. I will tell you, when I did these for my event, we had probably only 10 of them left, and I do believe that's because several of my residents were standing there, hands on hip, like, are you really going to take that, when they saw how few were left? But that's okay, you know, they were very proud seeing people eating them, and that would be how your loved one is too, to see people enjoying something that they created. So this is our little sweet treat project that we're ending with. Mary was off cleaning up the stuff from her pie mess, so she circled back. We wanted to talk to you about a few things. We don't have samples in your kit or anything, but going back to the mindset of just take the time to be with them. Something as simple as brushing hair. It doesn't sound like a big deal, and it sounds more like, you know, the activities of daily living care. but there's a very soothing experience in having someone brush your hair. You know, there's a reason why we love to go to the salons, women in particular, but even the guys, you know, it's that special time out and just enjoying that experience. You know, if someone doesn't have a lot of hair and doesn't appreciate that, maybe taking a warm cloth that's been moistened and you can pop it into the microwave, let it cool down a little bit because it'll be super screaming hot when you first take it out. But putting that on the face can help simulate a really good shave process that some of the guys have experienced in their lives. Hand lotion, it's winter, we're in Chicagoland, everybody's hands are dry. So taking that and not seeing it as a task as much as a time to dial into your loved one and spend time either massaging lotion into their hands with each other or having them do it themselves. But the power of touch is so healing and so important for all of us. I encourage you to do it for them, with them, and them for you. Those were the highlights we wanted to touch on for this session. We hope you've gotten something from this and you can appreciate what we're trying to message to you. One of the other things we do want to ask is that you put this in your calendar because we will be doing it again. It will be the, I'm sorry, Mary, what?
March 3rd.
March 3rd. Mary knows I'm not great with dates. It is going to be hosted on the first Wednesday of the month. We have a series set up through spring, and March 3rd is the next one. And we hope that you've enjoyed this. Mary, is there anything else that we need to cover? We do want to thank the library, Westmont Public Library, for helping put all of this together, and I want to thank you all for showing up and joining us.
Also,
Mary?
The business cards.
Oh, as Mary pointed out, in your kits there are our business cards. So if you have any questions, please feel free to give us a call, email us, whatever your mode of conversation is. You can also circle back to the library and they'll be able to direct you to. I believe that is everything. I want to thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you next time.
Have fun.
Have fun, enjoy the moments, and spend your time together. See you next month. Bye-bye.